Hi, my name is Keri Barnum. I am the Executive Director of New Shelves Books, and I am here for Free Advice Friday, the hour every Friday where we get together to talk about writing, publishing, and book marketing. We answer your questions live at newshelves.com/FAF, and you are welcome to join us anytime. We do have some emailed questions in, and of course, anyone joining us live can certainly put in their questions as well. So let me get to that first email that came through. All right, we've got two questions on Amazon keywords. Number one, if I have an ebook and a paperback of the same book, should the 7 metadata keywords for each be the same, or is there any benefit to using 14 different keywords? That's a really good question. I personally prefer to use different keywords. Why? Because it gives you twice as many options. Keep in mind that on Amazon, your books are linked. So when you're uploading your book to KDP and you've got the spot for the 7 metadata keywords in your setup, you have that on each book, each format, the ebook and the paperback. And so if you do different options on each one, you are essentially doubling your keywords because those books are linked. So whether they find the ebook version from that keyword or they find the paperback version from that keyword, when they click on the sales link, it takes them to the same page. So I personally prefer to vary my keywords throughout using, of course, similar themes. Sometimes if there's a keyword I really think is important, I will stick it in or use it in different phrases as well in different ways. But I personally prefer to do different keywords on each of those. All right, and will you please explain the proper use and benefit of the plus sign in keywords? That's not so much for Amazon, but if you are using the plus sign in searches like for Google, so if you were doing a Google search, if you did book marketing plus new shelves, it would pull up searches that had both of those components. So rather than just searching a whole long phrase, you're pulling things that have this plus this. So it's like when you go on a recipe site and I say, I'm looking for a recipe, but it needs to have sausage and kale. So it's only going to filter through and find the things that have sausage and kale in it, not one or the other. So that's the benefit of doing the plus sign. It kind of is giving more direction to the search than just doing an overall search. So that is why you will sometimes see that in searches. I have not, to my knowledge, that is not something as how it works in Amazon's bots and keywords. I could be wrong. They're certainly always updating, but to my knowledge, that is not how the Amazon ads and keywords work. Will they in the future? Who knows? I mean, if it works for Google, it certainly might come to Amazon. They seem to play off of each other quite a bit. And Pat is asking, when you set up Amazon ads, do you use broad, exact, or phrase? I'm creating ads for my children's book. Well, Pat, when I set them up, I try all 3 and see which one performs. You may be surprised that if you have a children's book, you, with a children's book, you may try, what was that one that went viral? The wonky donkey. So you may try the wonky donkey, broad, exact, and phrase, and you may find that broad works beautifully, but phrase doesn't really do much for you. So because they're different type of searches, you kind of will get different results. And it's amazing to me how one of your best performing keywords could knock it out of the park with phrase, but not with exact or so on or so forth. So there is certainly something to be said for that. I say you give them a try, you see what happens, and then you move from there. Let's see, I know we've got another question. Chat around the side. Kale is delicious, Randy. Don't you put down the kale. It's delicious. All right, and yes, so whoops. I'm just clicking buttons like crazy over here for better or worse. It's awesome. So another question, my computer's freaking out. Bum, bum, bum. I'm really struggling this morning. Can you tell I've been running around like a crazy person? Okay, breathe, Keri, just breathe. With ads, when you're setting them up, when you do those ads, you do not set broad, phrase, or exact for an auto ad. That's something, again, the auto ad means that it's literally being decided by Amazon, and they kind of do that. So you don't have to worry about that. Now, when looking for what those things mean, if you're looking at a broad match, what does that mean? Because I'm seeing questions about how that's not quite clear. NetGalley for audiobooks. I'll get to that in a second. If you are doing those searches, a broad search, as it sounds, it's the most broad. This is where customer search just has to contain all or part of the keyword in any order. So if you have a picture book for preschoolers, I could say preschooler pictures and it would still pull up in the search. It's very broad. So that's kind of good for your data mining in the beginning to see what people are searching for when they find your book. And that's why the broad kind of idea can be really helpful, because it gives you a broad way to reach them. When you do phrase, it's kind of like that, where it can have different, it can be a longer search, like it can have picture book for preschoolers by Anna, and it would still pull up because it's got the exact phrase, picture book for preschoolers. And then when you are looking at the exact phrase, it is literally that exact phrase. You'll typically get less impressions on that because it's so specific. But if that phrase is really what's going to push your book, then you are more likely to get the conversion once you do that, because it has to be literally exactly the same. So hopefully I didn't butcher that description too much and it makes sense. What is the best amount of keywords for an ad? I've heard 100 and another said no more than 40. Diane, this is something that there are a lot of opinions about. We all have them, mine is right. Completely kidding. Some people will say you start with very few keywords, very pointed, targeted keywords, and you watch your ads and then you slowly grow your keywords over time as those ads start to respond. This is how, if you've ever done Brian Cohen's Amazon ad courses or anything like that, that is what he recommends. You start with a very targeted list and you build up from there. And I think it's fantastic. However, it takes a longer time and it takes a lot of baking. If you have the time, it is a safe bet. It is a way to spend less money and to grow kind of slowly and organically, and it can absolutely work in the long term. However, some people are not as patient, or they don't have the time to wait. They need the data. They need to start big just to get the book out there. In that case, you can have up to 1,000 keywords. And that's typically what I do. I do anywhere from 500 to 1,000 keywords. I get them out there. It's a little bit broad, but then after a week or two, I can pull the data, see what's working, see what's not working, and I cull my keywords so that we don't have all of those keywords. So we start really big and then we shrink down. It does typically cost a little bit more money in the beginning because you have more keywords to go through and they may not all be a great fit. However, it tends to work very quickly to get impressions, to get sales, to get things moving. So it depends on your goals, and it depends on the time you want to put into it, how much budget you have to put into it, and what it's worth to you. To either go really slow and build, or to go big, get all the information, and then cull it down and make precise ads. They both get, I mean, it's like one person starts here, one person starts here, but we both meet in the middle and they both make great ads. I can't say that I think one is better than the other. I think it just depends on your goals and the time that you have to put into it. Others may disagree with me, but All right. I use Kirkus for a review and it takes them 7 to 10 weeks. Is it okay if I publish the book on Amazon before a review comes back? Yes, if you are using the Kirkus program that's paid for, where you're guaranteed a review, not a good review, but you're guaranteed to at least get a review, you can absolutely publish to Amazon in the meantime. You cannot publish if you are sending in for book or review submission and review interest. If you are sending it out to the free ones, if you're doing Publishers Weekly and School Library Journal and things like that, you tell them the book's going to come out on April 1st, then it darn well better come out April 1st or pretty darn close. But if you're doing Kirkus, since that is a pay-to-play program and that's what you're doing, then you have more leeway and that should be fine. Should you use NetGalley for audiobooks? Please, I haven't seen any reports or anyone saying really great things about that. Does that mean it doesn't work? No, I just haven't really seen people have great experiences or great, a lot of, I shouldn't say great, it's not that it's not good, it's just that they have done a lot of movement that way. If you are doing an audiobook, you can certainly do an audio blog tour. Those are becoming more popular. There are audio review programs. There is Audiophile Magazine is the big submission one that you can put in. It's kind of like it's the Kirkus of audiobook reviews. So you can do that. Asking your audience for reviews is always an option. Typically when you publish an audiobook, you get codes that you can use to give away. NetGalley is an option. You can sure try it. I just haven't seen or heard of really great results for audiobooks there. My one personal experience. Yeah, and so Tara's saying the challenge is you have to use the audiobook app. Oops, it went. You have to use the audiobook app that requires a newer iOS than some iPhone users have. So Tara has an iPhone 6, so she can't review audiobooks via NetGalley. Yeah, so there's some things that just hold people back. It's one of those things that it can be more difficult. And keep in mind, even if someone does review on NetGalley, doesn't mean they're going to review outside of NetGalley. Of course, you're always, as a reviewer, you're always encouraged to post your review in multiple places, but some people just review on NetGalley and that's it. So that's something to consider as well. And Cheryl's saying the Audiophile Magazine submission for review is very easy to do. And she should know because I just gave her that homework recently. So she's done it in the last week or two. I love when students get their homework done. Great job, guys. Great job. All right. What keyword search generator do you recommend? I tried Publisher Rocket, but not sure if I used it properly. It pulls up a few obvious keywords or other book titles. I personally love Publisher Rocket. I think when you're using Publisher Rocket, there are two types of ways to research your keywords by using comp authors and comp titles, but separately. So if I'm going to use Lee Child, great, I'm going to do Lee Child, and then I'm going to do his book title separately. There may be some crossover, that's fine. I would still do them separately, and also using phrases like bestseller mystery books or New York Times mystery books, thriller books, books for men, like different things like that. So you kind of need a mixture in there. It does take a little while to build a keyword list. That's why I will sometimes work with clients where that's what I do is I deliver a keyword list for them. And they, more often than not, actually, many of them will have some of this software and they pay me to go research it anyway, simply because they're like, it's work and I don't want to do it, which I don't blame them. So Randy, you're so funny. And so that's what I personally use. I know Brian Cohen recommends Data Scraper, which is a Chrome extension that is free. I find that Data Scraper is fine, but it is a little clumsy. It will pull up things that I don't necessarily want. So I think it's fine, but it's not my favorite tool. It is a free tool though, and there's value in that. It just may take a little bit more doing. I also have one from Push Button Publishing that pulls keywords, and that one's okay too. But I think Publisher Rocket is by far my favorite that I use. If you're doing Google searches, Twin Word, I don't think it's got an S at the end. It's just Twin Word, specifically pulls searches for Google specific things. So if you are looking for SEO and keywords, that can be a great option as well. And that's free up to a point. Let me see. Yes, if you, Caroline's asking, are you saying we can put a well-known author in our keywords? Yes, if you are doing ad keywords, you may absolutely do a well-known author and their titles as well. That is why if you search Mary Higgins Clark, you're probably going to see other people's books, is because they're advertising off of her name. That is one of the best types of keywords. If it's a really strong, good comp author though, do not, I repeat, do not. If you have a spicy romance that's got bodice ripping covers, do not try to use Lee Child or James Patterson as one of your keywords. You are going to get into searches, but most likely not to the right audience. And the algorithms follow that. If people are clicking on that keyword and they're not buying, or if it doesn't seem like what they want, it changes your algorithms. And so you're not going to help yourself. You're going to spend money though. All right. What was that company who has an online service to make your advertising easy and cool? I forget, something like Create Ads. Kim, you're going to have to give me more than that. There are a lot of advertising companies out on the market, so it depends on where the advertisers are and what kind of ads and all sorts of things, because there's lots of options there. Let's see. How long does it take to upload an audiobook? If you have all the files, uploading an audiobook does not take long. You have to have all the files, you have to upload it, and then it needs to go from there. It has to go through quality control of whatever platform you're using. And it depends on where you're uploading. If you're uploading to Findaway Voices, it can take several weeks. ACX is one, and that is for Audible exclusive. If you are doing Publisher Drive, I mean, it just depends on where you're putting it up. Typically though, I recommend Findaway Voices, and Findaway Voices, the upload process doesn't take too long, but then it does go through a whole review process. Let's see, is like, and how long, yeah, and how long does it take once you upload for those books to go live? So when you upload an audiobook, it goes up, it gets put through a review process for the files, and then once that happens, it's distributed out, and that can take weeks. The thing with a lot of these places is, like, if you do Findaway Voices, getting up on Amazon can take 8 weeks. It just depends on their backup and them sending files back and forth. So it just kind of takes a while. And Findaway Voices is a distribution platform, so it's not a matter of how much it is. It's they take a percentage of your sale, just like Draft Digital. If you are hiring them to narrators through them or to do your audiobook, that's different, and there's a price range in there depending on your narrator. Whoops. All right, could you share the Facebook link for members who wish to read others' books? I will look for that, Denise. If you are a part of our group, our Free Advice Fridays for publishers and authors on Facebook, there is a link and a thread in that group where you all can post your books, and you can review and read and all that kind of stuff. So that is an option if you look in our Facebook group. And you're always welcome. We don't allow promotion in there. We don't allow you to advertise or anything like that. But if you have questions or you found a new great tool or something like that, you're always welcome to post in that group as well. Caroline, I got nothing for you. It's pictures, and there's 3 pictures above authors' reviews. You could be maybe talking about BookBrush or Mockup Shots. Those are programs that create digital graphics, or that you can create graphics within. So that might be it, but I'm not remembering this program in particular, I don't think. All right, we had another email. Let me pull that one up. All right, I've written a novel and interspersed poetry that I and other poets have written within the story to enhance the feelings of the main characters. I have footnoted all of the poems and included a bibliography citing all of the authors and sources. I have been offered a contract for publication. However, the editor tells me I cannot include them unless each poet or publisher gives me specific permission. It has always been my understanding that footnote and citations are sufficient. Isn't that true? That is a tricky one. Now, I will caveat by saying I am not an editor. I do not specialize in this. I am not a copyright lawyer. So those are the people you would actually want to really consult with, is a copyright lawyer, a IP lawyer, a editor who specializes in this. However, when you are using things as far as giving credit, typically that's fine if it's a small quote. If it is a full piece of work, if it's a full poem or things like that, if that person is still alive, if it was published within the last 100 years, you may need to get permission. While there are some things that you can use if it's small and it's cited, just because you cite it doesn't mean that you have full use of their full product. And oftentimes there's like rules of thumbs of how much of a work you can use by percentages, but that's really a rule of thumb. If you are doing that quite often, then you absolutely want to talk to a copyright IP lawyer and make sure that it's all buttoned up. What you don't want is you don't want these people coming back later and you don't want these people coming back later and suing you or trying to take part of your book. And as Kara is pointing out, fair use is a rule of thumb. It's not a law. So, and if I misspoke, I apologize, but that's exactly right. Fair use is kind of like, well, this is kind of fair use and you should be fine. It is not a law. If someone comes after you with a lawyer and they are trying to sue you, then you got to go by the actual law. So that's where it goes. Yeah, and I agree, Tara. It's the fair use is, she's saying 150 words, which I didn't know that, but 150 words or 10%. And 10% is always what I had been told and taught, is that fair use typically is about 10% with citations. But if it's more than that, then it's free game, as far as them, expecting more from you. But again, it's something where you need to consult a lawyer for sure. Correct. You can mention other works. You can mention Winnie the Pooh. You can mention brands. You can do things like that. You cannot do it in a way that makes it look like you represent them. And if you're quoting a Winnie the Pooh book inside of your book and you're using like the whole book, not so much, not going to fly. So there are certain things like that. Okay, I saw more chatter on the side. Yeah, so if it's, I believe it's 100 years. So once a work has been published, I believe it's 100 years. I could be wrong. Please do your own search. But I believe it's 100 years is after that it becomes public domain. After it's either 100 years after publication or after their death. Might be after their death. Maybe someone here who does this more often, after death. So it's 100 years after death. Thank you, Kara. So if it is, if you are quoting Shakespeare, you still have to give credit, but there are a lot of public domain now because it's been more than 100 years after death, and that is a US specific rule. So there are other rules other places as well. So in most countries, the term of protection of copyright expires on the first day of January, 70 years after the death of the latest living author. So 70 years. And that has changed from time to time, not too much, but it has changed from time to time. But yes, if you're using anyone's work, you need to work with an editor. You need to do your own research and make sure that you're cover your rear end on that one. Let me see. So does that mean that if my character is drinking a Coke, I can say a Coke rather than a cola? Again, Eileen, that's one of the things I would defer to both lawyers and editors. Keep in mind that sometimes there are trademarks. And so if there's a trademark, that's treated a little bit differently than a, it's just treated differently if it's a trademark versus like intellectual property. So you may have to actually use trademark there, you know, so you can. I mean, you've certainly seen it, right, in different books and things like that. And some people even do that as like a shout out to a brand to try to get them to pay attention to them. But you do, of course, have to be more careful when you are using the name or referencing a big company in your writing. You open yourself up for possible issues. So you certainly just need to think about it. And also you probably need a disclaimer that none of the companies mentioned are related to this work or that kind of thing, that you're not representing them, all that stuff. If you're working on a book of quotations, would fair use apply? Mike, that depends on the quotes. It depends on how old they are, who wrote them, how much you're using, and so on and so forth. So in some cases, yes, but it depends on the specific quotes. Is it best to make everything like a restaurant or museum fictional in your novel? Like I've read a famous woman author who touts her restaurants and hotels all the time. No, I mean, I think that having real places and real things can certainly make a world and a story feel more real. However, you just have to be careful. I mean, if you're talking about a popular chain restaurant and you're writing all about how their kitchen was dirty and they had mice and things like that, and they felt like you were, if it was defamation or something like that, even in a fictional story, there you may want to be careful. It's all about how you put it in. Now, if you say, I was driving down the street and on the corner there was the big cows for Chick-fil-A, that's probably fine, but it's all in the context you use it in. Again, we don't want to make enemies in our, I mean, our characters may. We don't want to make enemies in our writing and in our publishing. We want to make sure that if we are writing about someone else, it's something we'd be proud to share with them. We don't want people to have a reason to come after us. Not that people are seriously skimming through your books and looking for that, but again, if it's like something horrible, it's something to think about. All right. I am a children's picture book author and illustrator. What do you think of paying someone on Instagram or Facebook, children's book influencers and mommy bloggers, to send my book to and they promote it on their page? Is that a good residual effect, or should I use something better for marketing and promotion? Whitney, it can be. However, I will say that if you are going to pay for influencer marketing, I personally would recommend that you research influencers you feel like would be a good fit for your brand, and you approach them and ask if you may send a review copy or if they have a influencer program that you can look into. I do not typically recommend, if someone comes to you, if you did not sign up with them, if you did not reach out to them, and someone comes to you and asks to promote your work and is asking for money, I am always very wary of that. Those people typically are people who aren't really building a brand. They are people who are building a list of people who follow them because they're charging them money and they want to see what happens. So rule of thumb for all things, I get this all the time. I get emails from people saying, this person emailed me and said that they'd review my book and it's only $100. Is it a good idea? It goes up on this website or that website. And my response is always research them, number one. Number two, if someone's coming to you and asking you for money, I'm always wary. It's different if you signed up for their newsletter, if you showed interest in their programs, or it's someone you're connected to. But if they're out of the blue showing up and asking for money to promote your book, proceed with caution, in my opinion. But if you want to work with influencers, if you're following mommy bloggers, if you're following Instagram influencers that you think would be a good fit, reach out to them and ask them about a influencer program or a review with you know, can I send you a review copy? Do you have a program? That kind of thing. That is what I would recommend personally. I get emails from underage people wanting me to deport millions of dollars into my US bank account. Yeah, you never know. I mean, I have a friend who recently got this email that was all about how she had been chosen for like entrepreneur of the year, and for a mere $3,000 she could go on their list. And so there's all sorts of things. Again, if it's something if you signed up for Kirkus and Kirkus sends you marketing opportunities, is it a good fit? I don't know. You'd have to decide that or look into that for you specifically, but I would trust that more, at least as someone you signed up for. But if I, as Keri's book reviews, am emailing you and say, hey, I really love your book, I'd love to review it on my website, that'd be $50, please. That's a little bit different. You didn't sign up for that. I came out of the blue. To me, it's just different. And I think that, not to say that companies that work in marketing don't market, we do, but it's more of a, hey, this is who we are, this is what we do, come to us if you need or want help, versus coming to you with a sales proposition without knowing you. You know, take me out on a date first, please. So again, that might be some of my personal preference, but that rule of thumb has certainly served me and the people I work with well. And Cheryl did mention she was very surprised when she was working with getting her audiobook up on Audible that you don't get to pick when your book goes live. And that is correct. When you are indie publishing an audiobook, you typically upload your files, you submit them for approval, but you do not get to choose when your book goes live. They are like, okay, well, when it's approved, we'll just put it up, no problem. They don't even tell you sometimes. You may not even get an email. You'll just be like, oh, my book is live. I see it and it's there. So that is one of the things of indie publishing, is you get more control, but also yeah, you get more control of the overall process and your royalties and less control of the distribution. Yeah, no, if someone is calling, same thing, emails, calls, people are calling you and saying, I think your book is great, you should just republish it, give us a call, we could make this a bestseller. No one's doing that, guys. No one. And if they do, they're going to give you some hard facts. They're going to say, I'm calling from this very well-known publisher or something like that. That's kind of not how it's working. All right. How long does it take for Ingram Spark approved print and ebooks to show up in distribution channels? It is usually immediate for ebooks, but I don't see my new title anywhere. It's been a few days. Loaded to KDP separately, and it's up on Amazon. Annette, It can be very quick, but what happens is once you upload a title to Ingram Spark, not only are you uploading it to Ingram Spark and they have to approve it, but then they push it out in the metadata, and the metadata is sent out to those other retailers like Barnes and Noble and bookshop.org and all that stuff, and they have to receive the data and sync it in their own website. So there are multiple moving pieces here. So it can take a week or more. I've seen it take 2 or 3 weeks even sometimes for it all to sync up. Typically, it's very quick for Ingram Spark. Ingram Spark does a big metadata update on Fridays. So if you do it on the weekend, it may take longer. Typically, if you do it before, it'll be pushed out on Friday. And again, it can go very quickly, but it can go slowly. I wouldn't panic if it's only been a couple of days. Thank you, Denise, for posting that link for that connection in the Facebook group. All right, so if I'm using the 3-letter agencies of the US fictitiously, realizing bad characters exist everywhere, this would be okay in a thriller about espionage or drug cartels. Kim, I'm going to point you back to a lawyer or an editor on that. There are a lot of things that should be okay, but I am not a lawyer and I will not give specifics on that. I am just not qualified. Regarding ACX, if we hire one of their voices to record our book, does the audio book get up faster than if we record our book ourselves, according to their requirements? I don't think so, Tara. I have had people do both. Now, if you hire one of their voices, keep in mind, those people are essentially freelancers that work through ACX. So if you do that, it's just like any other freelancer. It depends on how busy they are and all of that kind of stuff. Now, if you hire someone through them, those people are probably more versed in the sound requirements and making sure the files are correct. So it may go quickly there, but I have not seen any big difference in one or the other. And also be aware that if you're hiring through ACX, if you're doing royalty share, that locks you into an agreement, an exclusive for ACX and Audible for 7 years, I believe. How do you decide the right timing of a chirp promotion? So when you apply for chirp, you are actually applying for, it's like 2 months out. So if you apply right now in February, you would be in consideration for an April deal. So you need to keep that in mind, that it does push out quite a ways. The other thing is you want to make sure your book has been out a little bit, that it's getting some sales. Chirp looks at that. They want to make sure that this is a viable book option. If you can get reviews up, do that. Also, if you can tie it into a holiday or to a theme, if you have I don't know, if you have a Christmas romance, well, then pitch your book in October and say, I know this would be coming out right in December, which I think would work well for the holidays. Part of pitching is knowing you've got a product that's available to pitch for something like a chirp or a book club promotion. And part of it is making the marketing link for them to where you can say, this is a good deal for you. This is how it will work in with your marketing, and this is how it will make your platform money, because they care about that as well. It's something that we need to consider is, you want consideration from this big promotion site, and that's great, but how is it going to help them? How's it going to push their name and their agenda? So that's one of the things that you want to consider and look at as well. And I would wait at least a couple of months after your book came out. So again, you can get some sales and hopefully some reviews up. All right, I think I got through my emails, but I will double check. Oh, this one. All right, I'm trying to find and compile a list of some media to reach out for book reviews for nonfiction's books. I'm interested in targeting magazines, blogs, websites, but I don't know how to find all of these places. I have Google Alerts set up for the book's topic along with the words book review. And that has helped me get some names of websites and magazines that have done book reviews recently on my topic. However, using just Google Alerts seems to be a tedious way to collect the information. This is a tedious job. I'm afraid it is a very tedious job to collect people to reach out to for publicity, for reviews, for all sorts of things. And Google is a really great way to do it. But keep in mind, you can also go specifically to the platforms you want to work within. So for example, when we had Holly here, Holly was a guest who's talked about podcasting. One of her tips was to go on to Apple and excuse me, and to search podcasts on your topic so that you can then reach out to them for review or for consideration of being a guest on their show. So that will narrow it down to podcast. Doing things like your topic plus book review or your topic plus podcast in a Google search is certainly a good way to do it as well. And another thing that I would do is find books like yours or that are on the same topics as yours. Find good comps, search those comps, and find out where those comps were featured in. So if my comp is My Sister's Keeper by Jodi Picoult, then I would do My Sister's Keeper reviews and see what pops up and see if I can then collect those places. If I've written a book on healthy eating strategies, then I'm going to find a book that fits within that, and I'm going to search it on Google and see where it was featured. Or I'm going to go to that person's website, and where they will often have a media tab or a as featured on tab, I'm going to click on it and I'm going to follow it through. So it's still tedious, it still takes time, but it is a good way, if you're doing this yourself, it is a good way to start making those connections and contacts. And so you are, at least as you're searching, you're not just getting a ton of filler, you're going directly to where you want to be. Let's see, what was the question? I'm not sure. Jennifer, you asked about the question I just answered, and I'm not sure because I've answered a lot. But the replay, you guys, we always have a replay of Free Advice Friday that goes up on YouTube on Mondays. So if you're not following or subscribed to our channel on YouTube, please go do that. It's just New Shelves. No, it's not. It's youtube.com/New Shelves Books. So you can follow us there. And every Monday, we also put up a blog on the New Shelves blog, which is a highlight recap, which has kind of the basics of the questions. So you can follow that as well. Whichever you like, if you like video or if you like the other option of reading that's available to you. All right. Yes, and so Harrow, Help a Reporter Out is another website where you can look for reporters who are looking for feedback from people who can be interviewed or who can help give information for articles. And so especially if you're nonfiction, I think Harrow is a great place to be looking for and working towards, because you get notifications in your inbox of people looking for people to interview or to comment on certain topics, and you can scan through, and if it fits for you, then you can reach out to them and pitch. So it's kind of it's great to pitch other people, but when you can get their information brought to your inbox, that's even better. Have you demystified the metadata challenges of using a middle initial and junior as the suffix for author name? I'm finding Ingram Spark has a text box for the author's middle initial, but not for the junior or suffix. Initially, when I set up my books, I used my last name, Gates, and junior in the same text box, since there was not a box to fill in for it. Is there a cheat sheet that demystifies the metadata fields for each service? No, I don't think so. That's a really good idea, though. I do know that on Amazon specifically, they have been working towards with that. I read an article gosh, it was a couple months ago, but I had read an article where Amazon specifically was working on that to make sure that it wasn't an impediment and that it may actually help in the searches for suffixes. So I know that they're working on it, at least on Amazon. The other platforms, it's very common for people to put the suffix in their last name area, but I don't think that I know of a cheat sheet. But typically that's what you do. If there's no field for the suffix, then you will put it directly in the last name box. If there is, then of course you'd use that. Let's see. All right, you guys, I think I've answered all the questions so far. We've got about 5 minutes till 11. So if you've got any more questions, I'm happy to stay here and answer them. And as I said, the replay will go up on YouTube on Monday. So that'll go up. Our Hot Topics blog will go up on Monday as well. So you've got access to that. And you can always join us in our Facebook group. If you go to Facebook, if you find New Shelves Books and you like our page, you get invited to the group, which is just Free Advice Fridays for publishers and authors. You can do that and always ask questions there. If you have questions that you forget and then you're like, oh, I should have asked it, you can also email them in to info@newshelves.com and I will cover them next Friday. Otherwise, I think that we're pretty good. Let's see. What about switching genres? Switching genres can be tricky. A lot of people will, if you're switching genres, a lot of people will be using a pen name so that you don't confuse the metadata. It can oftentimes be hard to move an audience from one genre to another. It may be a good idea to start with a pen name or a derivative of your name and build a new audience for that. With that said, you can move genres, but it needs to be an easy switch. It will be hard to go from Christian fiction to erotica. That's not going to fly. From adult steamy romance to children's books, you would probably want a pen name there. But if you're in romantic suspense and you want to move into more thrillers, then your audience would probably follow a bit more that way. So it depends on how much you're changing things up and if you would want to consider a pen name or not. And again, you may be starting with a new audience and have one and the other. Yeah. What is New Shelves Books and how can they help me reach more readers? New Shelves Books is no, I'm kidding. New Shelves Books. So what New Shelves Books is, thanks Randy. We are a book marketing and publishing consulting company. So we work with authors who want to help themselves. And that may look like consulting as you publish your book to make sure that you have checked all the boxes and you're putting out a professional product. That may look like marketing yourself once your book is out, either indie or with a traditional press. It is working to build your platforms to reach your readers. And there are programs certainly that we have. We do bookstore mailings and library mailings where we can reach that retail audience, or we can reach out to libraries for you. But we also help you build the platform to reach your own readers, because that's really important. It doesn't matter how you're published, who you're published with, you have to build your own audience. And that does take some work from you, but we try to make it as easy as possible and as fun as possible to make sure that you are getting those readers, and that it's not just a big book launch that then falls flat, that you've got an ongoing relationship with your readers and you know how to do it in a fun and easy way. So that's what we do. That's what we focus on. If it has to do with publishing or book marketing, we probably had our hand in it. So you can always reach out to us as well, just through New Shelves Books, newshelves.com or info@newshelves.com. All right. Well, I'm going to hop off. It's right at 11. I appreciate all you guys so much. I will be heading off to Florida. So if anyone is in the Jacksonville area and you want to join me for a chat tomorrow morning, email me. I'll give you the details. I know Jane's going to join in for a chat about marketing the libraries, which is going to be awesome. And I appreciate you guys so much. I will see you next week. Same time, same place. Bye.